Welcome to an experience powered by PIPE TV.
You are now watching PIPE TV.
Hey, this is your girl, Mz.Tonni, and you are watching PIPE TV, where Photography Insight Plus magazine comes to life, and we are bringing life here to you. In the studio, we have this beautiful young lady who I've met a while ago, and her personality is just infectious. So I'm glad to be sitting down with her once again. Please welcome Amelia Moore.
Thank you.
Amelia.
Thank you. You know, it's so funny. I've been dying to do this show. So when Michael finally called me, I was like, yay!
Yay!
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know you arrived when
Yes.
you do PIPE TV.
There
you know
you
what
go.
I mean?
There you go. And I know I met you a while ago, and I think it was on the red carpet. And I actually was like in passing. I just started with PIPE TV, and I was like, who is that big personality? You know, and Michael's like, oh, I'll introduce you to her. And like ever since then, like I was following you, and like you're like my mentor.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, like,
that means a lot to me.
Yeah, like I watch you for, you know, different things. And then when I did finally interview you, and which I want you to recap for our audience, your past, like how am I questioning this? Give me a little bit about your background, especially when it comes to business, because this is going to lead up to this, you being an author and why you wrote this book, right? So give me a little bit about your business past.
So happy Internationals Day.
Yes, I meant to
International Women's Day, because
she's repping.
I'm repping Cape Verde because that's really part of my story. I was born in New York, but as I started getting older, my father wanted me to know my culture, and so we moved to New Bedford, Massachusetts. Shout out my New Bedford people.
Okay, Mass.
And I learned about my heritage and my culture and everything else. But what was really crazy is, you know, we are a kaleidoscope because it's 96 miles off the west coast of Africa. So every sailor, everybody you can think of. So I've got Jewish, Irish, you name it, kind of blood in me.
Right.
And so my relatives is like an array. It's like a kaleidoscope, which made me appreciate the melanation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, I like the way you say that.
Yeah,
the
it is my new word.
melanation, yes.
Melanation, because that's who we are.
Right.
And I realized at an early age, understanding culture, you understand people. So I've been a culturalist all my life. My mom, an educator, my father, a community activist. So I understood the importance of community and helping. So that became something that was with me, and it still stays with me till
Automatically,
today.
yes.
So, you know, when I started realizing who I was, I didn't realize racism until I went to college, right? And I was called the N-word, and I was like,
What?
What?
Yes.
Wait, well, what is this? You know what I mean? And it sounds so crazy, but it was because in our community, it didn't matter what culture you was, it mattered what content of character you were.
Yes.
So if you were whack, you was
Yes.
to the left.
Right.
So that's how I learned how to gauge people.
Amazing.
And when I got married. I was a model first. When I graduated from college, I gave back to my community. You know, I did an education program for after school, like for the summer, in the parks, because a lot of marginalized children don't go to camps.
Correct.
And so they lose all of their education over
During
the
the
summer.
time, correct.
Right, and they
Yes.
also don't have the morning curriculum, so then it's hard for them to get back. So I used to start my fun things at 8:30 in the morning so that the kids had a habit of getting up. And with muscle memory, when it came time for them to go to school, boom.
Yeah, they're ready.
So I'll fast forward. After college, I came back to New York, my love. I'm a New Yorker to the heart. And I got into modeling. And Audrey Smaltz had the Underground Crew. And that was my first mentor. And she taught me something that I've held to this day.
Right.
She said, always be the green apple getting ripe, never the ripe apple getting rotten. Meaning always leave room to learn. And I live by that. I truly live by that.
Obviously, because you you just repeated that like fluently.
Yeah, I live by that. That's one of my mantras. And so after I got married, my ex-husband was in the music industry. So I was like, okay, I'm old school. I'm an old school liberated woman, if there is such a beast.
Yes.
I believe that a woman should support her man.
Yes.
So I switched from the fashion and garment industry into the music industry. And shout out to Deidre Tate. I tell her story all the time. She was like, Time Warner has a temp program. You're administrative. You'd be perfect for that. Sure enough. But when I got into the black music department of Atlantic Records, it was over. And shout out to R.I.P. DJ Fumi. He had recently passed, but Fumi was my dog. And he was like, yo, I want a DJ. And I was like, yo, I want an A&R. And I was one of the first girls doing it.
Right.
You know what I mean? And he was like, all right, so what we're going to do, I'm just going to quit. And I was like, he says, and I'm going to suggest you, because I'm going to get sick a little bit more. You're going to learn the game, and then I'm just going to flat out quit. And that's how I got the job.
Look at that.
And then, I tell women all the time that strategy is really important, and positioning is really important being a woman in business. You cannot ignore that, because lots of times it's a male-dominated industry, and the guys are going to convert for the guys. So how do you stand out? You make sure you politic. So that's what I did when it came time to do the permanent position. I'm watching all these DJs coming. I'm like, yo, I've been doing a job for 3 months. Like, what about me?
Right.
And he was like, well,
Always an excuse.
Yeah, well, it wasn't even an excuse. It was just a mindset. You know what I mean? It's like, it's protocol. Right. So how do you break protocol? So what I did is I went to everybody in the department, because at that time, it was a you. Right? And I went to everybody, starting with Richard Nash and Merlin Bob and, C.B. Bullard.
Yes.
And, you know what I mean? And I was like, do you like what I'm doing? Yeah. Tell my boss. So then it got to the point where Sugar Daddy Kevin Woodley was like, I see what you're doing, and you're going to get the job, but if you mess up, you're out. And I didn't. And it was probably one of the most remarkable times of my life, because I got to work with Roberta Flack. And as a young girl, I used to listen to her records, and I couldn't believe I was closer to her than you and I talking, mastering her album. And, a funny story, it's a lot to be said about doing you and being authentic with yourself. I love this woman so much that I knew her sound inside out, because I had been listening to it my whole life.
Right.
And the producers decided to do another mastering session, because I was calling all the shots. And they was like, who's this snotty little girl? Right? So, fast forward, I get called into Ahmet Erdogan's office, and I'm like, oh my God, what did I do? Oh my God, what did I do? Right? And my boss was like, Kevin was like, I don't know, but you better go.
Right.
And so, there's still a bit of ghetto in me, So I'm sitting in front of this man, and he's like, are you aware that they did a second mastering session? And I was tight. I was like, wait a minute, what do you mean? Like, what? Like, but I'm like, maintain composure. Right. But I'm like, you know what I mean? I'm growling.
But you know how to play the game.
Right. Because you got to have a game face. That's the other thing I teach women. Have a game face.
Yes.
So I'm sitting there burning inside, and he says, I want you to know that I chose the one that you did. What? He was like, yes. He said, why did you make the decisions that you made that made that sound the way it was? And I was like, Roberta has one of the most loving, warm, gentle voices I've ever heard.
Yes.
And I wanted to make sure that the EQ resonated that. And that's the story of my life,
Personal. It was personal. You got personal with it.
So then fast forward, I got tired of, the nonsense.
Fast forward, yeah.
Yeah, I got tired of the nonsense because I'm an Aquarian, so we do things. We do things for a certain time, and then when it becomes redundant or boring, time to move. So I winded up getting a job at G Street, and that was amazing because I worked with RZA and the Gravediggers. Shout out to Rest in Peace Prodigy, but and Dougie Fresh and PM Dawn and Amber Sunshower and like New Kingdom and all these different eclectic groups, and then Beanie Man and Sizzler and Luciano, and I'm like, wow, this is super cool. But then I got bored again, and I started my own marketing and consulting company. It was called The Droid at that time. And Deidre comes to me again. She says, I got these people up in Yonkers that I think you could use their service. Right. And that was Rough Rider.
Okay.
And that was...
Y'all see the chain, right?
Yeah, I always got to front my family.
Yes.
And that was probably the most exciting time, but also probably the most challenging time. Like we were doing 20-hour days. A lot of people didn't realize that initially it was just 5 people in the office dealing.
What was your around how old were you moving and maneuvering all this time?
At that time I probably was in my 30s and 40s.
Okay. Yeah.
So I mean it was crazy.
Young, pretty,
Yeah. But you know what? I was thugged out.
What does she know?
No. I didn't look like this. I remember one time when I finally, fast forward, I was now a TV personality, and Jada saw me, and he was like, Millie? And I was like, yeah. Because back in those days, I would wear the Timbs, the baggy pants, the hoodie, the hair in the ponytail. Yeah, no makeup, because I was one of the boys.
Right.
And they taught me a lot. I love my brothers.
Right.
I'm a female in power, but I'm not necessarily a feminist.
Right.
I believe that our black men are phenomenal. And they have this that they can give to us, this sense of knowledge that they can give to us, but we also, as nurturers, have a sense of knowledge that we can give to them.
Absolutely.
And that yin and yang is what makes us powerful.
And going on to this powerful, I mean, you've done all that, and with that history behind you, now you're a actor.
Yeah.
Like the transition, I know you say you get bored.
Yeah.
But
you know what happened? What happened was I didn't like where the music industry was going.
Yeah, it's changed.
I'm a hip hopper. I love and live the culture of hip hop. But this rap industrial complex that our kids have been dealing with and been indoctrinated to is contrary to the culture. And so I was like, tap out. Because I don't endorse the misogyny, I don't endorse the drugs, I don't endorse any of it. I don't endorse the monotony of the messaging and the musicality. No. I'm from a generation of spitters.
Right.
You know what I mean? You got
originals,
spit.
Right. You got something, just give it.
Bah. Skibby dibby. Nah.
We're not going to go there.
I'm going to go there for a minute. Because I got to keep it, everybody knows I keep it real. So I got out and I became an education specialist because that was my degree.
Wow. Okay.
And we did some remarkable work.
Okay.
Shout out to Elisa Pratt. We had a step team at McKinley Housing, middle school age girls that stopped gun violence in that community for 276 consecutive days. Those girls went on to get a $20,000 grant from Allstate. They winded up being on ABC for We Day. They winded up going to South by Southwest. And when they were at South by Southwest, Helen from Facebook and my other mentor, Shelley Zalis from Female Quotient, flew the girls to the south of France for Cannes Lions. And that's when I learned that our children can do anything. Right. It's not that you can't. You just have to learn how. Absolutely. Well, look, Amelia, we have so much more to talk about, with you. We've dove into some things, but when we come back, guys, she is also an author. And we're going to talk about this new book that she got going on, okay? So stay tuned to PIPE TV. Welcome back to PIPE TV. I'm your girl, Mz.Tonni, and of course I have Amelia Moore here.
You know, we dove into her past. I know you guys said, hey, you know, that name sounds familiar. Now you know why, right? She's been all around, especially in the hip-hop community. But I definitely wanted to pinpoint, again, you are going into acting, or you've been doing acting, and it's blowing up. And also becoming an author. Like, tell me your transitions. What's going on?
So, I didn't realize how I've always been an artist advocate, but I didn't realize that's because I'm an artist at heart. And so, shout out to Tracy Moore. I took her class. I got bit by the bug. I did the Lost Book of Rap. I did the Police Squad, where I'm a villain for these kids. And then I just recently, shout out to Omar Moore, the director, I just did a series that's on Tubi called Paper, The Rise to the Top. And I play a thug.
Seen that. I actually seen that. I've worked with Omar also at one point. Yeah.
So, you know.
Congrats on that.
So I'm enjoying it, and you know, because I'm an executive at heart, my friends tease me and call me executive talent, because I approach it from a different perspective, because I know what timing and all of that is and what the budgets are, but I also know the responsibility of creativity and making sure that you personify these words. So, and that's my love, because I'm a journalist at heart and I'm a writer at heart. So, you know, being able to personify words is amazing.
And look, you already getting excited.
Yeah.
She's already getting excited because the anticipation of getting ready to talk about this book.
Yes.
So let's just dive into this book, because you guys will have to definitely grab you a copy. CEO versus CEO. I love the title. Before we even get into the book, how did this title come about?
So, it's a known fact that anytime a woman walks into the office, she's a woman first. So how do you position yourself? And that's something that we as women don't do enough of. How do you position yourself so that you're equal and they already know your status and not just look at you as a woman? So if I call myself a CEO, you already know I'm a boss. Right.
Yes.
That part. And then what happened is CEO versus CEO is not about competition. It's the contrary. It's about effective communication. And the verses really means words. And how do you communicate better with your brothers or your male counterparts, you know? And I go into a whole series. Like, I really break it down. And I even have a chapter where us women need to work with each other a lot better. And I don't take anything away from any woman's role. Not, you know, I changed the word of that nasty B word to beautiful, intelligent, talented corporate hustler. Do you be you?
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
But understand that you are always looked upon. So, you know, understanding how you brand yourself, understanding that your reputation reps you when you're not in the room, and I have a whole chapter on that about if you want to be the diva, but understand the diva only is a toy until she's not a toy anymore.
There's a quote I wanna pull out from your book, right? It says, most women wear, this is something that like really caught my attention, right? So it says, most women wear their emotions on their face. First step in business as a CEO is to learn a game face.
Absolutely. Because men are so quick to say that we're emotional.
Yeah.
But in actuality, we're just as passionate about what we're talking about. And when you raise your voice, son of a gun be damned if I'm going to raise mine too. Like, who do you think
But you called all kinds of names behind that.
But it's okay, though.
She feeling some way.
But that's okay, though, because when you wind up being able to put that game face on, so that it's not about fear. Like, I teach women, and this is very, very important. If you're the only woman in the room, you do not talk like this. You talk like this. You talk at a pace like this. Because you are not reminding him of his wife, his daughter, his sister, his girlfriend. You are now at a frequency of all the other men in the room.
You guys hear this? Which goes to another quote. I'm sorry, I pulled out like a whole lot of quotes because you had so many little things. So listen to this quote, guys. Right? Here we go. If you want to effectively communicate with men, it is best to speak like a tweet. Short, concise, and clear with confidence.
Absolutely. Because we as women, we tend to... Wait, I
don't mean to cut you off. When I heard this quote, I'm like, okay, is it because men are slow. Like, that's the first thing. I don't mean nothing. Sorry, gentlemen, but I didn't mean nothing by that. But that's what I was thinking. Men are slow, and they're not going to get it.
No,
like,
I'll give you a visual example about the difference between a man and a woman as it relates to just perception, right?
Okay.
And again, I've learned this from my brothers, being with them so long. If there's an office, a woman will walk into the office. She'll see the rug. She'll see the chandelier. She'll see the wood. She'll see the desk, the phone, and the computer. A man will walk into that room, he'll see the desk and the computer. You might see the phone.
My goodness.
Because his job is to get the job done. It's not for the ambience. And so men tend to be very direct, and women tend to be very omnidirect. And so sometimes when you get into all the... you lost them.
Right.
But I also, later on in the book, tell people, if you want to learn effective communication, listen to the person you're talking to. Because if that person wants pleasantries before he talks and you go direct to business, you're rude. But if you talk pleasantries and that person's direct to business, you're boring. So it's very key to listen to how that person talks to you so that you can mimic that communication and be effective.
Amelia, I don't know if I want to call you an expert yet, but let me use the word expert. How are you an expert on this, and why did you decide to write this book?
Well, I decided to write this book because after I got out of the music industry, I'm still around in the community, and I would hear young girls dealing with stuff again because of the paradigm shift of what a woman's role is and what a definition of a woman and all this foolishness, right? So I was like, no, you went about it the wrong way. And I'm like, I'm getting frustrated because I'm hearing this conversation. I'm like, I don't want to jump in, but I want to jump in, right? And then I'm talking to some of my sister friends, and they're like, this Negro's getting on my nerves. And I'm like, yeah, but your approach is twisted. You're not doing it effectively. So then I went to Dominican Republic, and I had some time, and I wrote it on the roof of the house that we was doing because I was watching this cultural shift.
Wow. Yes.
And I was just like, there's a need for this book. And then I wrote the book and then just let it sit for a while. But then, because of where we are now, with so many women's rights going backwards, I felt like it's time. Yeah. And, everything in God's timing too. So
absolutely. And with you mentioning that, you also mentioned something about the kids, about our youth. I have another quote for you, okay? And I swear this is going to be the last quote, okay? So just bear with me. It says, in order to know next, you have to think next. Young people are the ones that are next.
Absolutely.
That's powerful to me.
Thank you. I'm a youth advocate, and I've been that ever since I've been young. I just watch what other kids go through that weren't blessed with the same thing that I had.
Right.
And so I felt like, let's share this knowledge. And it's a tough world these young people live in. When we were growing up, and my son says it to me all the time, he was like, Ma, you lived in the best era. But we had a path that was just like this, and you could deviate, and then you could come back to the path without no stigma.
Right.
But these kids, if you imagine them standing on a dot, they got arrows all the way around. But once you take the step, you're stigmatized by it. Right. You're now this. You can't come back to center.
Good analogy.
So that's why they're not doing anything. They're stagnated. And so we now need to teach them how to explore, how to experiment, how to vocalize, how to be. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because it's a tough world.
It is.
It's sad.
It really is. And
kids are sexualized at 6 years old when their brain doesn't develop until they're 25.
Yeah. They don't even know it, though, because that becomes their norm.
And that's bad because they don't give an opportunity for them to identify themselves. Like, we had cursive writing, but cursive writing...
They don't know what that is.
Cursive writing is the first time a young child has to assess what their personality is, because that reflects you.
Yes.
But they don't have these type of challenges. And so self-identity is being sacrificed. And now they have a thing called telephobia. It's crazy.
She's going into that. That's another topic, another story, another episode.
Right.
Yes,
exactly.
we could go so left with that. But one thing that I do like in this book, and it was all through the book. Again, you guys got to get this book. She makes this statement almost all the way through the book, every so often, you say, play chess, not checkers.
Absolutely.
It's all through the book.
Yes.
Every time I turn around, you have that.
And it's very important because, again, as a woman in business, you have to anticipate moves. And when you play chess, you anticipate your opponent 7 moves in.
Correct.
The better chess player, right? So you can't just take things as they come. You must really analyze the whole office, what your goal is, and then calculate. If this one goes left, all right, I'm going to have this one deal with that one. If that one goes right, I'm going to have that one deal with this one. And you stay neutral because you have to be as the leader. You have to be as the boss. You can't show favoritism,
right?
But you have to understand your team and how to manage it.
Right.
And a good leader macro manages, not micromanages.
Yes, I like that. I love that. In short, what do you want people to take away from your book?
Women can do it all.
Ooh.
Women can do it all. It's just learning how. There's no such thing as can't.
Okay.
And I always love to say that we've been built from the rib, not the foot.
Oh.
So understand that you are equal.
Yeah.
And you have to take the stances and articulate the words to make sure that your counterparts understand that.
Yeah.
And, another time we'll go into the 4 E's, but be careful of the egghead because he's the only one he's the only one that you will never win over.
Yes. So, Amelia, tell them how they could follow you and also tell them where they can get this book.
So it's very easy. The book is www.SheEO, that's SheeoVSCEO.com. And I do consulting, so you can consult. You can book a consultation if you want to know how to navigate the men in your office or your dispositioning. And then also for me, I'm Amelia Moore because I'm more than what you bargained for.
Right.
So AMELIAISMORE. Google that. You'll see everything I do.
And don't worry, because it's going to be all the information after the show, in the credits, okay? So make sure you connect with Amelia. This is your girl, Mz.Tonni. Thank you for coming to PIPE.
Thank you.
Yes, it was long awaited. Thank you for being with us here at PIPE TV.